Hey friends, this is Lisa Roers at the Sunshine Cafe. I've had so many conversations, beautiful conversations here at the Sunshine Cafe, and today's no exception. Here's what you're going to get in today's episode. If you've ever walked through grief, if you've ever wondered how to keep your faith strong when life feels really heavy and unbearably difficult, this episode's going to pour some hope straight into your heart. You'll get to hear how God truly does walk with us through pain, tragic pain, and how he can weave purpose into every opportunity, even when the most difficult things surface, allowing us to extend the legacy of our loved ones out into the world to help others and make an even greater impact. Today, I'm going to sit down with Karen McCord, the mother of Carly McCord, and you might recognize her name. She was an aspiring sideline sports reporter, but she was a lot more than that. She was a young woman whose talent and determination and unshakable drive brought her national and international recognition. Carly's life, unfortunately, was cut short by a tragic plane crash. But through Karen's story, her mother, you'll get to see how faith can anchor us in the midst of heartbreak, how hope can emerge even in the darkest seasons, and how God's goodness continues to shine even through the cracks of our loss. So grab your coffee or your tea or whatever your favorite beverage is, settle in, and let this conversation remind you that even when we can't see the purpose, God is still weaving beauty into every chapter of our story. Welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. I'm Lisa Roers, your host, and hey, thanks for joining me today. I'm here just to pour some positive back into your day with practical tips and stories to encourage and inspire. So let's dive in. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Sunshine Cafe. Today's conversation is, it's a little tragic. It's also powerful, and it's extremely encouraging. In this life, we all face loss. We all do. And sometimes it's tragic loss. And sometimes it just happens way too soon, whether that be by illness or an accident or other reasons. And while that's definitely not all that encouraging, the beautiful and the inspiring part is how people move through that grief and get to the other side, and how those stories of perseverance can encourage other people who are forced to walk a similar path. None of us escape that. We all have to deal with loss. And today I have the great honor of sharing one of those stories with you, because today I get to sit down with the beautiful Karen McCord, who is the amazing mother of Carly McCord. And if any of you know Carly's story, she is just a beautiful, vibrant young woman, just had this genuine warmth that won over people and won their hearts over so quickly. Well, Karen, Carly's mom, has walked through a heartbreak that no parent should ever have to face. And yet, in the midst of that loss, she's also chosen and found a way to keep moving forward, holding on to her faith, honoring Carly's legacy, and finding a way to shine light and shimmering rainbows through the darkest of seasons. So this is not an easy conversation, but it is a real one, because we all have to face tragedy in our own lives. And I want you to see this beautiful light that Karen brings to the table. But my hope is, by hearing Karen's story and a little bit of Carly's story, that you'll be reminded that even in our deepest grief, when things make no sense, that God is near and he can bring comfort, healing, and even, ironically, some kind of purpose out of our pain. So with deep love, superior respect, and deep, deep gratitude, I want to welcome this beautiful friend of the show, Karen McCord. Thank you for being with us today.
Oh, thank you. It's my honor. And that was beautiful. You brought tears to my eyes.
Oh. Well, you and I've had a chance to talk a few times, or a couple times anyway. I was just saying before we hit record here, how you have just such a beautiful light and energy about you. I can only imagine how it was to be in the presence of your beautiful daughter, because I know the two of you share so much of that.
Yes. And she had even more, if that
Uh,
could be possible.
yeah,
She did.
yeah. Well, there are so many questions I'd like to dive into this story, but let's maybe just start with the encouragement side of it, because I know you have such a passion to carry the legacy of optimism and energy forward that Carly shared with the world in such this genuine warmth. She had just such an immediate way to connect with people. So maybe you can help our listeners understand a little bit about, where does that passion that you have for encouraging others come from?
Lisa, it comes from God.
Mm.
I felt God immediately. Even at that moment, I had an experience. I was in Fresh Market buying some goodies for the game because we were ready to celebrate. LSU was playing Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl, and her father-in-law was the offensive coach for LSU. And Carly was going to cover the game, and everything seemed perfect. It was a beautiful day, and I was in Fresh Market, found out the news,
Mm.
and there was this man who came up to me and said, "Can I help you?" And he was beautiful, Lisa, but he wasn't beautiful in like, the macho way. He wore a beautiful maroon sweater.
Mm.
And he looked up to me and he said, "Ma'am, you look distraught. What's going on?" And I was like, "I don't know. I don't know. I just found out there was a plane crash. My daughter was on the plane. I don't know." And he hugged me
Oh,
tightly, so tightly, let me ugly cry, with the tears and the snot and the everything. And he says, "I will drive you home." And at least I did not know him, did not know his name. I was ready to get into the car with him and let him drive me home. But the manager of Fresh Market came up and said, "I'll drive you home, but thank you, sir." We turned around because I wanted to thank the man for being such a help to me. And he was gone. And nobody in the store could find him. The the event was so public. It was on national news. It was on the television, the game. It was reaching all over the country, even in China and Australia and those types of places. Never heard from that man again. Never even said, "I was the guy who held you." And I do believe it was Jesus or an angel or something like that because he just vanished. I mean, that quickly. And so I knew at that moment that God was with me. And I just said, "He's with me in strength and hope."
mhm. Yeah. Now,
Uh,
that doesn't mean that we don't go through the depths, so the really dark depths of grief. I know that you went through a lot of that, and how could you not? You have this beautiful daughter with all this aspiring career, and she was just kind of coming into her own space of success and
yeah,
really getting some great traction on her career. And so that had to be just a really like, how do I wrap my head even around the
right.
reality of what just happened?
Right. It was such a shock. When you have tragic death, there's so much you have to deal with. And yes, she was just on the pinnacle of her career. She was ready to sign on with a national contract. So she had made it. And that I find great comfort in is the fact that she did achieve her goal and she knew she had achieved that goal. And so that brought me some solace or some comfort. But a tragic death is just so hard to wrap your head around. For example, recently we had the flood victims and the little children that died in the flood, and I look at these parents and we only see the public part of it. And you see the politicians arguing about this or that. And while all of that is going on the news, these parents are picking urns for their kids or picking speakers to read at the
Yeah.
funerals. They're dealing with details that you, as a viewer, never see.
Yeah.
And that's where the depths and despair comes in. But I want to divert here, if this is okay, because a lot of times in the news, you hear thoughts and prayers. When are thoughts and prayers not enough? And I am here to say they are always important. Yes, we could try to solve the problems of plane safety. Or yes, we could always solve the problems of the school shootings. Yes, we could always look at the problems of the flooding events. But let's not take out the thoughts and prayers because sometimes that's all you can offer the family. And that is your action. Your action is I can't do anything else, but I can get on my knees and pray for you. And I've found such comfort in that.
Mm.
I've found such hope in that. That yes, if you are really offering me your thoughts and prayers from the top of your head to the tip of your toes, I just so feel it. And you do feel it as a parent. You feel that love emulating from one person to another when they can't do anything else.
Exactly. Exactly. Prayer is a lot more powerful than people realize. It takes somebody who's in the depth of that despair and feels like they're all alone, and it actually does infuse them and wraps them with this beautiful energy of love and kindness and thoughtfulness. And so I'm glad you said that because, yeah, actually, there's even, I'm studying this in my PhD, but there's even some actual science that shows prayer, they don't know how, they don't know why, but it literally makes a difference across the
It
space.
does.
It does, like if scientifically they're starting to show that the cells of another person's body changes when somebody is being prayed for. And
Oh,
so,
I would believe that because I felt it, Lisa. I
mm,
could feel the thoughts. I could feel the prayers. I could feel the energy of love around us. And we formed a scholarship for her in St. Michael's, which was her high school, and then of course Northwestern State, which was her college. And, I could feel the love of people just even giving $25 or $50, and some people gave a lot more. But even in those acts of hope,
mhm.
you feel that hope. And that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to write Only Rainbows is I knew I was gonna write a book very, very, very early on. So I decided to keep, like, notebooks, and I'd write notebooks, like, little notes and little nuggets so that I wouldn't forget, because I knew writing a book and sharing all of these personal stories so that when you're saying I want to give you thoughts and prayers. You can also give them a physical thing, which is a book that helps them to get through this. And the people gave me books. One other book that I absolutely loved was The Shack. And
Mm.
I'd read it and I'd earmark it over and over and over again. And of course, the Bible, you'd read it over and over and over again. And, that physical thing, along with thoughts and prayers, was such an amazing gift that we got throughout this process.
Yeah, definitely. Let's talk just a little bit about that because I know rainbows in particular have a significant connection to your beautiful Carly. Tell us what that connection is.
The connection is actually right before the plane died. Well, to give you even more of a backstory, the night before the plane died, she told me, she looked at me and she said, Mom, I just had this premonition that something's going to go wrong tomorrow with the plane. I really don't want to get on the plane. And, she really did, and she told a few people this, not only me, she told a few people this. And I looked at her and I said, "Carly, then don't get on that plane." And she goes, "Oh, Mom, I gotta do it from work and I'm gonna be fine. I'm just nervous." Well, she was always nervous about getting on a plane.
Mm.
So what did I do? I looked at her and I said, "Well, then call me when you get there." And, she said, "I will." And so she was nervous to get on the plane to begin with. That morning, she got on the plane, and at 9:03, she posted on her Instagram, "Only rainbows after rain, the sun will always come again." It was one of her favorite lines that she had mastered from Andy Grammer.
Mm.
And, Andy Grammer is a singer, and, she had met Andy Grammer several times when she was on the road and doing her sports cast and her radio cast. And, she posted that on the Instagram, and I don't know why. I don't know why, because 2 minutes afterwards, the plane went down. So I'll never know why she posted that Instagram. Did she know she was going down and she was telling the world, "Only rainbows, don't worry, I'm okay"?
Hmm.
Or was she just posting that because she was nervous because of the night before? Don't know why. But since her death, Lisa, we see rainbows everywhere. I
Wow.
am talking everywhere. In fact, Saturday night, one of my friends sent me a picture of a rainbow over Tiger Stadium earlier in the week.
And that's one
And
of the places that she worked, right?
yes, yes, of course, and of course, her father-in-law, once again, was the offensive coach, and she was covering the game right before the Clemson and LSU national championship, where LSU was playing Clemson, the beginning, their first game, and there was a big old rainbow across Tiger Stadium. And my husband and I were watching the game that night, that Saturday night, and LSU was losing at that point. And he turned to me and said, "We're going to lose this game." And I said, "Nope, impossible. We can't lose this game." And sure enough, we won.
Oh, that's so you had
Yeah.
a little help from above, perhaps.
A little help from above, but that's just one example of rainbows. I mean, rainbows appear all day, every day in our lives.
Exactly. Well, I've had the great privilege of looking through this beautiful book you wrote. What a wonderful um, tribute to this beautiful daughter of yours, and to carry her legacy forward and to use all of that beautiful energy she had to help others through this journey as well. I know that writing that book must have been cathartic in many ways, and I'm sure difficult in others. So, what were some of your highlights from that process of pulling that together?
Oh, there were a lot of things that were very cathartic.
Mm,
Uh, One of the things is that it helped me to cry. I
mm,
know that sounds weird, but as I was writing, you could see the big tear drops on the page. And when I say writing, one of the very cathartic things is I did not put it on computer at first. I wrote it from hand or head. And so everything I put down was definitely something that was a physical act that came from my own spirituality.
mm.
And so that was one of the ways that it was cathartic. Another way is I interviewed over 100 people for the book.
Oh my goodness.
And some of the people were very famous. Michael Lombardi from the Cleveland Browns, and now he works for the College of North Carolina in the football program. I interviewed all sorts of people, Shaquille O'Neal, Sean Payton. I went through all the famous people, and I worked and interviewed the people behind the scenes. I even interviewed the janitor of the Superdome, and to hear his side of the story, because I wanted to go on a journey to find out who my adult Carly was. And I'll explain that, because, of course, your mom knows you. I mean, she gave birth to you, you know your child, or both. Most moms know their children, but your mom doesn't know your work world. Your mom might know your friends' names, but they don't know how you interact with them. And so what I did is I went on a journey to see who Carly was with her friends and her work people. And when I did that, I found so many funny stories,
Mhm.
so many raw and goofy stories, as well as so many loving and stories filled with hope. And so that just brought me such joy, because I found out that my daughter was just a delight to work with,
Mhm.
that she was someone who just radiated and people appreciated that love and affection. I found out that I could put my head on a pillow and say, "God, I did my best. And she was a great human being. And thank you for letting me give birth to her." Because I found out, funny, raw things. And please understand, she was not always this angel. You know, um, she cursed like a sailor. And a lot of the guys told me, "Oh, yeah, she could keep up with the best of us." She was raw, she was goofy, she would do silly things and everything, but she always did things with love in her heart.
Mm.
And I think that's why she thrived so well. And she always believed in telling people thank you. And she always honored her audience. And I thought that that was one of the things that was one of the phrases that just kept going on and on and on throughout every interview, is that She would carry the cameraman's equipment to help him. She would bring Reese's peanut butter cups to the parking attendant that let her get a close spot to the Superdome so that when she walked out after the game, she wouldn't be walking into the city by herself.
Mhm.
And she just did things from a place of love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you wrote this book because I never got the chance to meet Carly face to face. But what I love about the book is the way that you unwrap her story and weave the details in amongst the way she was impacting the world really helps me feel like I almost did know her. And so, in a
Mhm.
way, it extends this beautiful legacy of her life into the future that who knows
Right.
how many people's hearts you and she will touch by just telling
People.
that story.
Yeah.
Now, I know there were a couple of key turning points for you. So, could you share with us a couple of those kinds of turning points?
Absolutely. One turning point was is I went to the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. And I went by just sheer accident. I had a girlfriend who called me up and she said, Karen, can you come and help us decorate? And I said, absolutely. So I went to the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame and it was something that Carly actually worked. She worked with the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. And so it was near and dear to her heart. So I went up there and I decorated. And it's just about year 3 after Carly died. And I could remember going there and laughing and acting silly. And all of a sudden, I turned to Christy and Heather, the 2 girlfriends, and I turned to them and I said, I'm having such a good time. Is it okay
Mm.
to laugh and be silly? And they're like, absolutely, it's okay. Enjoy it. And I can remember that was the first time in 3 years that I truly could enjoy the moment.
Hmm.
It took me 3 years to really just be able to surrender and have a good time, laugh and joke and cut up and just be totally silly because like Carly, I'm kind of raw and silly and goofy. And, I was dancing and just having a good time. So that was one time. Another time was, I think I've read this to you earlier, and it was just a quote that I wrote down because, and this is how the book evolved as well. I would sleep, get nuggets, write them down, hand, heart, brain, and that's how the book was created. And one of those moments, it said, um, there comes a day when patching up the wound is over and recreating must begin.
Mm.
And that's so true.
Yeah.
There comes a day when you have to say, yes, Carly, I'm going to think of you because I can think of her every moment and every day and talk about her for hours. I
Hmm.
can do that. But there comes a time when you have to say, okay, this is my new normal. It's not what I expected. It's not what I wanted, but it is my new normal. And I am going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy it because I have other family. I have Kaylee, that's my daughter. I have Carson, that's my son. I have grandchildren. I have a husband. And I have, son in laws and daughter in laws. And I owe it to them to have joy in my
Mm.
heart and give them joy in our lives.
Yeah.
And when I started to do that, and then Tracy started to do that, and the kids started to do that, and it was like a really cathartic type of event.
Mm.
And now, Lisa, something very interesting has happened. The first Christmases, we just would sit and would go and would look at where Carly sat and we would mourn Carly, and look at and say, Carly this, Carly that. Now we have new traditions and we play games. We trim the tree on Thanksgiving night so that I don't have to trim a Christmas tree by myself. The whole family trims it. And we laugh and we sing. And instead of saying, oh, that's where Carly sits, we look and goes, Carly would love this. you know?
Ah.
And when we do our Christmas dance, because we always have a little silly dance after we trim the tree that's raw and goofy, we
Mhm.
would just say, Carly is with us. Carly, would love that. And so our traditions and our holidays have evolved so where we don't look at them with such dread any longer, and we look at it with new joy. And that's where that saying comes. There's a day that you have to patch up your hole in your heart. Your heart's never going to look perfect.
Mhm.
It's a new normal. But when you recreate yourself, you recreate the love that Carly did give us.
So true. I love that you are building new traditions and not that you're leaving her out of it, but that you are carrying her forward in a different way.
Right?
She wouldn't want you moping around and being sad and
No.
not living your life. Nobody that we have lost would want us wallowing in that for too long. So,
Right. And the other thing is that she has done a great job letting us know, fine, mom, I'll
mm,
see you again. I just believe that.
and that is the hope that we as Christians get to enjoy is to know that we'll be reunited in heaven again.
Right.
So, there was something that you shared with me when we first chatted, Karen, and it was part of that turning point for you. It was a friend of yours, I think, who was talking with you, who had kind of asked you about whether or not God could have stopped that plane from crashing.
Uh,
Can you share
yes,
that with us? Because
I
I
sure
thought that was
can.
such a powerful moment too.
That was a different turning point. That was very early on in the death process. It was my grief counselor. And you've got to understand, 2019, she died December 28th, and then 2020, COVID hit.
Right.
And I was so, we were isolated, and which was probably the worst thing that could happen to us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was meeting my grief counselor on Zoom, which, then there in and of itself is not as personable as if you were in person.
Right.
And her name was Vanessa, and she looked at me, and Vanessa asked me, she said, Karen, what's the worst day of your life? And not only that, she says, if you could change any day in your life, what day would it be? And I looked at her and I was quite confused because I'm like, well, of course you know that day. And she goes, no, stay with me. And I said, okay, I will. And I said, December 28th, 2019. She goes, what would you have done differently? And I said, well, I would have gone to Carly's house and slashed her tires, and she wouldn't have got on the plane. And I said, and even if she had made it there, I would have hung on the wings of that plane to stop it. I said, I would have gotten in front of it. And she goes, ah, so you would have played God. And I said, no, I would have played mom
Mm.
because you told me what was the day and you asked me what my day was that I could change. She goes, well, Karen, don't you think God could have done all of those things? And I said, yes. And she goes, Karen, stop playing God. It wasn't yours to change. It
Mm.
was her time.
Wow.
And deep, deep, deep in my soul, I knew she was right.
Mm.
It was her time. I couldn't have stopped the plane. And so that helped me alleviate the guilt
Mm.
of saying, I could have stopped her. I could have stopped her the night before. I could have done this. I could have done that. No, I couldn't have because I'm not God.
Right.
God called her home and it was her time. Her mission on earth was complete. And to quote one of my favorite books, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and this one was Illusions by Richard Bach. You know your mission on life is not complete if you are still here.
Mm.
And hers was complete.
Mm-hmm. And like you said earlier, she got confirmation of that herself as well. So she kind of knew she had made it and accomplished those goals.
Yes, she did. And this book would have never happened And the book is a miracle in itself because I, by trade, am a science teacher. I taught chemistry, I taught physics, I taught earth science. I didn't like to write. I still don't like to write. And I didn't pick up a pen from 30 years ago until I wrote this book.
Mm.
And even people tell me I was so amazed by how it was so technically perfect. And they said, "How did you choose the style?" Because it's like it goes from present to past. And I said, "I didn't choose that style. God chose it." And so from this tragedy was this rebirth of Only Rainbows. And that's why I do believe it's such a unique book,
Yeah. Yeah.
and where it's going to go, I don't know, and that's God's. If you buy this book, it's because God wants you to read it.
It is very well written. It does have a lot of that back and forth, which kind of brings you in and out. Like I said about in and out of the story. It just was really, really well done. Yeah. So
Yeah.
this is something Only Rainbows is something people could find on Amazon, for example.
Mhm.
Okay.
Everywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. Yeah.
Got it. All of that. Well, do you have a couple things, little sneak peeks into the book, a couple things that you would hope people would take from that book?
Oh, yes, I do. And one of the things is that even though it's grief, it starts off as grief, but it ends as a love story
Mm.
between a mother and a daughter.
Oh.
And, you see her struggling in her career.
Mm.
You see her working night and day to get where she wants to be. For example, in the book, she looks at a guy named Doug Ireland, who was one of the athletic people of Northwestern State University. And he looks at her and he goes, "Well, what do you want to be, Carly?" And she goes, "Well, I want to be Erin Andrews." And he goes, "No, you don't. There are a million people who want to be Erin Andrews. You need to be Carly McCord."
Mm.
What she learned from that is that's exactly right. I don't need to emulate Erin Andrews on the sideline. I need to be my own person and have my own style. And when she did learn that style, she was unique, and that's why they liked her.
Mm.
Another example was Michelle Tafoya. Michelle Tafoya absolutely was Carly's mentor. And 6 weeks before she died, she got to meet Michelle Tafoya. And she was so very excited to meet her because she was her mentor, because she always understood that Michelle held the highest professionalism in the business. And she wanted to make sure that she was the best professional that she could be. And like I said, the day that she met her, she was just elated that she met her. You also see a part of the book that's hilarious in the fact that in her high school years, she was supposed to get TOPS, which is the Louisiana scholarship. And if you get a 3.0 or better, you can earn TOPS. Well, all she had to do to get her 3.0 is to sing in the choir and get an A. But she didn't like the choir teacher. And, she wasn't really the best of the best students back then. She winded up being a fabulous student, but in high school, she could care less. What did she do? She took off and she went to the beach for the day and skipped choir, and she got a C in choir.
Oh no.
Beautiful voice. Carly is a singer, or was a singer. She just sang beautifully. So graduation night is when I found out she didn't get her scholarship. So we looked at it and we're like, no problem. Uh, you can get your scholarship. There's a program called the Miss Lady of the Bracelet pageant. And all you have to do is sing and use your talents and do that. Mind you, she had short hair, black fingernails, thick eyeliner. And she told Tracy and I, "Mom, this head just doesn't wear a crown." I do no, 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 anything but pageants. Well, her sorority sisters talked her into it, and all she had to do was win first, second, or third runner up, and she would get scholarship money. And so she did do it. And she got up there, and Lisa, She absolutely was amazing. She won the preliminary in swimsuit, but she walked like a horse in her evening gown, and she tripped and fell.
Oh,
And when
no.
she tripped and fell, my son looked at my husband and said, "There goes the scholarship."
Oh, shoot. Oh, no.
And she won second runner up. And when she won second runner up, we just all screamed, "Yes, she
Yes.
won, she won." And everybody's looking at you like, no, she didn't. She won second runner up. But she won the scholarship money, and she proved to herself that she could do it. And then she joined pageants to get the scholarship money to pay for the rest of her college.
Wow.
And believe it or not, she was first runner up twice in the Miss Louisiana pageant, and she would call it the first loser.
Oh,
And
first.
she got more mileage out of that than I think winning the title.
Yeah. Well, like her sportscasting career, she made it her own and put her own
Right,
personality on it and
right,
made it into something unique and special.
right. But it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
I mean, she found herself doing pageants when she never thought she was going to do pageants.
Mm.
She had to move to Cleveland for the Cleveland Browns in order to get her first break. She knew nobody in Cleveland, and
Wow.
she went there anyway, and she did it. And she worked nonstop until she hit her goal. And unfortunately, that goal was, she was fourth down in inches, and she was ready to pop it into the end zone to make the touchdown, and she didn't make that touchdown. But I think she knew she made it in her heart.
Yeah. Well, she made it into the end zone. It just happened to be in heaven. So,
Right. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh.
do.
Well, I am so honored and really thank you for sharing a little bit of Carly's story with us. And we'll make sure we put a link for the book in the
Good.
show notes here so people can see that because I do think it's just filled with so much hope and encouragement in that book for people starting their career or for people who are trying to navigate loss. I think it's a helpful book for either of those kinds of situations. But before we wrap up, do you have any kind of an encouragement or something that you want people to, maybe who is just starting that grief journey, any encouragement you'd have for them?
Yes, I do. And the encouragement is it is at the beginning, second by second. Then it becomes minute by minute. Then it becomes 5 minutes to 5 minutes. And then it comes hourly. And then it comes daily. And when I say daily, that doesn't mean you don't think about them because Carly is always at the back of my mind, but daily in the fact that you are recreating yourself.
Mm.
And then comes the traditions and the things that are really hard, the birthdays. But you learn to say, well, Carly's eating angel food cake in the
Ah,
sky. And you just have to put one foot in front of the other. And you also need to be very patient because everybody grieves very differently. For example, my husband went very inward,
mm,
and it took him a very long time to be outward with it. My son was the rock of the family. He
mm,
was the protector. He found in his grief process to be the protector of the family. My daughter owns a clothing line, and she felt as though it was really important to make a line for Carly, and it's called the Little Rainbow Line. And she found happiness in that, and she gave all the money to children with heart defects. And then I found myself writing the book and going into the speaking tour.
mm,
And so everybody grieves differently. And just because you're grieving one way doesn't mean it's right or it's wrong. I've had people who say, how can you talk about your daughter's death on podcast? And I go, because in my way, that's giving back. That's my love
mm,
to give back to. My husband doesn't have to be on the podcast. My husband has never read the book, and that's okay. That's okay. No opportunity that God gives you is wasted, you
mm,
know?
mhm,
And, but that's my advice, that give yourself time, give yourself love, and make sure you let the people around you grieve in the way that they need to grieve. And grief counseling, I couldn't have done it without grief counseling,
I'm
you
so
know.
glad you had mentioned the fact that everybody grieves differently, because I think that's so
Mhm.
true. And what works okay for one person, or I know another friend of mine, who actually another guest that I'd had on the show, she lost her 15-year-old. He got
Ugh.
on got in a car accident on the way to school, gone. And like within weeks after, she was hosting her Q&A. She's a doctor, so she was hosting Q&A and answering all these questions and laughing. And she's like, people have asked me, how can I laugh? And how can I giggle? And how can I kind of what you were saying about how you had that moment. And she said, I've come to the conclusion that people are capable of carrying two emotions at the same time. I can carry grief and I can carry joy. And the joy that I have doesn't have to squash all of the grief, and the grief I have doesn't have to squash all of my joy. I'm more complex than that. I can have two at the same time, or two emotions. Well, those are wonderful tips. Thank you so much, Karen. You are a beautiful soul. I love
Oh,
just being in your presence, and I really encourage people to go pick up this book, Only Rainbows. You will find it really encouraging, and you will be blessed by this beautiful soul, Carly McCord, whose life was cut just a little too short, but you will be able to still enjoy her beautiful legacy by just enjoying the book that her mom put together. So, Karen, thank you for being with us today.
no, thank you. I thank you for letting me talk about my daughter because that's also a big gift. And thank you for what you do. And I so appreciate it. Hope to see you soon.
I just love how Karen took Carly's story and found inspiration through that and created a legacy that will extend far beyond what she might have ever expected. This story means a lot to me personally because I can really relate with the whole process. After my mother passed and I was her caregiver for, oh goodness, how long was that? Maybe 16 years. I found a poem in the things that she had left behind, and she had always wanted to be a published author. And this beautiful poem really needed to be shared with the world. So I took it, finished it, polished it up, found an illustrator, and turned it into a legacy for her through a book called The Who's First Christmas. It's right here behind me. It's a great Christmas gift for any kiddo, grandkiddo, or as I like to say, anyone who wants to stay just a kid at heart. You can find that book on my website. Just go to lisaroers.com and look for the red button right on top. It's my way of helping to extend my mother's legacy and her beautiful talent of writing. So, from this conversation with the beautiful Karen, I have 4 amazing and helpful takeaways for you today. Number 1, God walks with us through every hardship. Faith doesn't remove challenges, but it does give us the strength to move forward. Lean into Him today and let Him carry you when life feels really heavy. And just trust that He's weaving purpose into every single part of your story. Number 2, grief and joy can exist at the same time. They can coexist. You do not need to choose between honoring the loss of your loved one and finding moments of happiness. You can allow yourself to feel both emotions. Carry your grief and be kind to yourself while still opening up your heart to laughter, hope, and new beginnings. Number 3, persistence and determination matter. We learned this so clearly from Carly. Her grit shows us what's possible when we refuse to give up, even in the face of multiple roadblocks, right? Keep moving, find creative solutions, and know that your courage can inspire other people who are watching you walk this path. You might be inspiring people in ways you never realize, but it is happening all the same. Someday you'll see the fruit of that. And number 4, finally, your story has the power to encourage others. The experiences you've lived, the lessons you've learned, and the ways that you've persevered through really difficult times can be exactly the hope that someone else needs. So don't underestimate the impact of sharing your story, sharing the light that you've found through the hardship. And God can use it far beyond what you've imagined. God will take your struggles and extend your legacy far beyond what you might have ever imagined or dreamed. Thank you, friends, for joining me today. Please, if you would, share this episode because you never know what kind of encouragement could be in our conversation that someone else needs to hear. So pass it along, like it, share it, and subscribe. I'd love to work together with you to flood the world with more encouragement. And if you have something that you'd like some help working through, I just want to remind you that I am a life coach and I work with a lot of people to help them level up or work through difficulties or restore relationships all those things that happen to us in life. So please go ahead and reach out to me on my website. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, my friends, stay encouraged and be inspired, and I'll see you right back here next time at the Sunshine Cafe.